Oh, it's being recorded. Good.
Okay, all right, excellent. Hey, Len.
Len.
I don't want to interrupt later, but I do have an appointment, so I'm going to have to leave. But I'll be with you until I have to leave around 5:02 or something.
Great.
So when you
Thank you for being with us for as much as you can. Appreciate it.
Thank you for doing what you
Hi,
do.
friend. Welcome.
Who's playing the music? Who's our DJ?
All right.
Dropping some Sunra, you know, or Valerie Tutson. Welcome, welcome, everyone. Welcome to our art and wellness session. It's a lovely day outside, and we get to share this space with you.
I mean, in your radio career, Shay.
It's only because I'm Puerto Rican. It's in the blood. Wait a few more minutes as we let people come join us into this virtual portal. Thank you, Tracy. We have to use original music. Yeah. Welcome, everybody. Who else do we have here? I see Cabral and Cabral. Stephanie. Ben, are you in?
Yeah, I'm here. Glad to be
good.
here.
Hey, Steph.
Steven.
Great to see you.
Christina Bevilacqua and Angela Di Veglia. Hello, hello. PPL people. Hi, everybody.
Nice.
Nice.
Hi. So exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that background, Fran.
Yeah, that's a really good background.
It is.
From the mural on
Oh,
right
that's
donut.
nice. Yes.
Oh, is that from the Still Here mural? Nice.
Beautiful. So gorgeous.
Moccasin flowers are me.
Oh.
That's my traditional name.
Aww.
Where is this mural?
By Need Donuts building over by Capriccio's.
Nice.
It's not the donut building anymore. They closed that location. Yeah, it's at 32 Custom House.
Ernest Cox,
Ernest,
welcome.
Hello, I had to call Leah to find the link.
That's great. Glad you're here.
Hey, Vadik jumped in. Hey, Vadik.
Welcome, Vadik.
Hi, everybody. Vadik, Kumba, he, him pronouns. I don't know if I missed the check-in, but it's great to see everybody.
Good to see you, Vadik.
We're just about to get started.
All right, Tracy, Shay, you tell us when.
What you think, Tracy? I'm into it. I think we get started right now. What?
Yeah?
Let's do this.
All right. Welcome, welcome, everybody, on this beautiful fall day. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your time with us for our planning studio on art and well-being as part of our Creative Providence cultural planning process. So thank you so much. My name is Gina Rodriguez-Trix. I am the Cultural Affairs Manager for the City of Providence Department of Art, Culture, Tourism. And I want to take a few short minutes to thank and give a shout out to all the beautiful people who helped organize today's studio. Of course, the team here at ACT, we have Director Stephanie Fortunato here. You want to say hi? I can't see everybody. I only see my face now, so. We have Special Projects Manager Micah Selkind with us. And we also have
everybody.
Hey. And we also have Lael Tucker, who's our Program Director for Turnaround Arts Providence.
Welcome.
Hi. Yay.
Yay. And also shout out to Lizzie Araujo, our Deputy Director. Also want to thank our artist facilitation team, Tracy Johnson.
Yay.
Hi.
Jay Rivera.
Wepa. Hola.
And MJ Robinson, who's not here with us for this studio, but has been an integral part of our facilitation team. And our production manager, Janaea Kizzy, making this Zoom experience effortless for all of us. Thank you, Janaea. Lou. And of course, Valerie Tutson from Rhode Island Black Storytellers, who we all know and love, and who is our sector alchemist, organizing our meeting for today. So thank you so much, Valerie.
Such a pleasure. Oh, is it my turn?
Did I get cut off? Am I good?
Where did you go?
Oh, am I back?
You're back.
All right. Good thing for hotspots. Also want to thank our incredible speakers today. We have Loren Spears, artist and museum director of the Tomacrog Museum. We have Nicole Hernandez from Uprose, who's a climate scientist here with us. And we also have Fred Johnson, a musician and artist in residence at the Strauss Center for Performing Arts. So thank you so much for being here. We'll hear from all of them in a bit. Again, we are here today as part of our Creative Providence cultural planning process. Some of you may remember the first planning process, which our department led about 10 years ago, or over 10 years ago, actually. And it was released in 2009 at the heels of the financial crisis. And you might remember how our city then was covered in boards of plywood, and the realities of our already long existing social inequities were amplified by the economic crash and the severe housing crisis that followed. Housing then was in many ways our central focus as a community, but we have always known that housing is just one part of our human and community basic needs. Yes, we need shelter to be well, but we also know that we need so much more: clean air, clean water, a healthy planet, access to healthcare, and of course, ways to be with one another and share joy. Over the last 10 years, we have seen the ways Providence artists have been working at the intersection of health and climate justice. And as a creative community, we have seen how artists work deeply in clinical health settings, as organizers, as artists with social practice, who are embedded in neighborhood-based programs, and on the forefront of bringing to light our climate crisis and the movement for environmental justice. So while art and well-being was not an explicit goal area in the last cultural plan, it was nonetheless a huge part of our creative life in this city. We are, of course, humans first, and societies have always understood the inherent connection between our bodies, the land, our well-being, and creative expression. However, we do live in a colonized society with an economic system that depends on extraction and exploitation of people and the land. And because of this, some of us may feel like this intersection is not quite right. What does art have to do with our individual and community health? What does art have to do with addressing climate change? And I think we could all argue that it has everything to do with it. We are experiencing right now the confluence of multiple pandemics: COVID-19, anti-Black racism and systemic violence that it generates, and a climate crisis. We are also weeks away from an election that is ripe with deniers of all of those pandemics. And it's also Mercury retrograde with a Uranus square. So chaos is super happy right now, according to Johnny Nichols. So We really need to focus on our creative expression and well-being in this moment. We have some real work to do together. The cultural plan is one piece of a very large vision for our future, one which we hope will align and elevate the state arts and health plan and the city's climate justice plan. We know our creative community is already deeply involved at this level, and we really do at ACT see our job in creating strategies and policies with you to support you in that work. So without further ado, I'm gonna kick it over to Val, who's gonna lead us through today.
Thank you, Gina, and thank you for setting the context for how we are here today. I can't see myself at all. Can y'all see me? Can you see me? You can. All right, let me put it. Okay. I don't know if I need to see myself. Yes, I do, or I need to see you as well. It is a privilege and an honor to be co-hosting this with the city through the Rhode Island Black Storytellers. And I want to kind of make a long connection in terms of how I see RIBS and the storytellers and the work that we are doing connected with this notion of art and well-being. And I'm going to start it with a little 6-word story by way of introducing myself, and you'll have an opportunity to think about this a little bit later. So if I were going to tell you my little story about how it is I'm coming to this space at this time, I might say, Black theater, my home, you're invited. You see, many years ago, I showed up at Brown University and I walked up on the hill and I met George Houston Bass, who was one of the co-founders of Rights and Reason Theater. Rights and Reason Theater, he knew had to exist. It came out of the Black Power movement, the Black theater movement. And George, when he arrived at Brown, knew that Black students needed a place and space to tell their own stories in their own way, with their own words, through their own lens. And when I showed up in Providence in the early 80s, I stumbled into that beautiful black box and I met George with his big laugh and his bigger heart and his open arms, and he wrapped me in and gave me medicine I did not even know I knew, but I knew that I had found a home in that space. And when George talked about Rights and Reason and what it meant to the Black students, he knew that if they were going to survive in that Ivy League setting up on College Hill in the city of Providence, they needed a place where all of who they were could be seen and could be known. Because I connected with George, I met another man you see right down there, Mr. Len Cabral, telling stories in the Brown University bookstore. And he welcomed me into this place and space of telling stories. And he nurtured me in a place where I could see myself and know myself. And eventually the work that Len and Ramona and Sylvia was doing theater work, we created the Rhode Island Black Storytellers, a place where we could be nurturing ourselves and sharing our stories for everyone. And several years ago, we started to explore storytelling as a way of looking at healing. How does storytelling help heal individuals and the community? And we hosted a Cherokee and Lakota doctor who came and did an all-day workshop with us, and at the end said, basically, if you want your community to be well, all you need to do is gather on a regular basis and share food and share stories. That's been so much a part of what we at the Rhode Island Black Storytellers have been doing. And we are excited to be hosting this space. We are excited because we've been connecting with people in the art and health commission level, the partnership between the city, between the state agencies, the RISCA and the Rhode Island Department of Health. There's so many intersections happening, and we are just really thrilled to have you come and sit in this space and be thinking about what it is that is needed for this wellness to happen in our environment, where the arts nurture us, where we feel fed and our environment serves us and we serve it. So without any further ado about that, that's enough, I think, for my little babbling on. I'm just going to breathe again. Oh, and I also want to say that I had the beautiful opportunity. Yes, I did get to see Fire Flowers last weekend, which was so beautiful. And this past weekend, spend time at the House of Glitter with AM and the beautiful work that they're doing there. So it is evident to me that our community recognizes that we need to continue to find ritualistic art ways to bring ourselves together for the well-being of us all. So, Loren, is this the right spot? Because I had the wrong order. Is this the right spot?
Ma'am.
Okay. So please, Loren Spears.
Oscar Kwasan, Natasuis Makasni Pashao, Nahai Gansek, Natasuis Loren Spears, Englisha, Ni Nahai Gansek Nehantek, Kanupiam, Wuchi Ni Tampawag Ka Ni Tanksawag, Ki Nahai Gansek. Katabatash Katantwa Wuchi Wami, Nawiya Nakan, Wani Tiawank. Katabatash Katantwa Wuchi Wani Kisak. Katabatash Katantwa Wuchi Nipawus Ka Matakwasag. Katabatash Katantwa Wuchi Wita. Katabatash Katantwa Wuchi Nepashawag Ka Penashamwak. Katabatash Katantwa Wuchi Sokanun Kacha Usha Ka Niempa Og Ka Wayopayanash. Nashbi Mishatashan Piangwag Kachisatao. Kakantamwu Wami Sakwan Kisakwan Tanakwanik Ka Paponi Pashao Nashbi Winitiawank. Katabatash Katantwa Wuchi Tiangunanag. Katang Gon At Kisa Pishawangash. Panashawanku Katishumai Onkung Ginawan. Kakantamwu Ginao Aquine Wami Pionginao. Katabatash Katantwa Wuchi Wami Wamin Unisiniat Nukasaki. So what I said to you in my language is I said, hello, everyone. I'm Loren Spears. My traditional name is Moccasin Pashao, or the moccasin flower, or the lady slipper, which you can see back here in this quilt that's on the wall. And I said, welcome to all my friends and relatives to the homelands of the Narragansett people, most of which is what we consider Rhode Island today. I said, thank you to the Creator for all the beauty that surrounds us. Thank you for this beautiful day, and for the sun and the clouds, and for the forests, and for the birds and the animals. And I thanked the Creator for the rain, the thunder, the lightning, because with a storm comes a cleansing. And that we want all the seasons, spring, summer, and fall, to burst forth with beauty. I thanked the Creator for our ancestors, those who suffered the pains of slavery. Their spirits wash over us. We wish for peace in the future, and we give thanks to the Creator for the beauty of Mother Earth, Ninaj. And so with that, I just want to sing a song. It's called Yunaweekend. It literally means, in translation, we dwell here. It's the idea that our ancestors are here, the blood of our ancestors is here in this land. Everything about who we are is in this land. Our stories, our life ways, what we call art today is in this land. The things that we created to make our lives beautiful, to make the useful, to have the practical that was necessary for our families and our communities. And everything we are is in this land. We are directly connected to this land.
You know how we can, you know how we can, you know we can, we you know we can. Way ha, way ha, way, way, way ha, way ha, way ha, way, way, way ha. You know we can, you know we can, way, hey, you know we can. Way ha, way ha, way, way, way ha, way ha, way ha, way, way, way ha. You know we can, you know we can, way, hey, you know we can. So I sang that song once for the past, once for the present, and once for the future. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring to us today Ella Sikatau, who was a tribal ancestor who actually taught me that song. I knew it as a child, I forgot it, and when the Nuwituan students and I went to Washington, D.C., we brought elders with us, and Ella was one of them. And she sang that song there, and I asked her after, would she sing it with me until I knew it? So we sang it 3 times through until I could sing it myself. And it's really important because I had that childhood memory of the song, but I didn't have the words anymore. And so I've been singing that now probably for a good 15 years straight, reminding everyone that we dwell here, that this is our homeland. Katabatash. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for sharing that beautiful heritage, and thank you for having us all here. We're gonna move the meeting into a quick agenda overview, and then yeah, we'll just go over the agenda real quick. I'm Tracy, I'm one of the arts facilitators for this project, and I will be telling you about the agenda for the next 3 minutes. So we're gonna have Lauren back to speak to us, which is wonderful. We have a couple of guest speakers lined up, so Lauren would be first. Then Fred Johnson will be joining us. Then we'll be speaking to or hearing from Nicole Hernandez. Then we will actually be taking a 5-minute break, which will be a good opportunity to stretch and reflect on what you've just been hearing and how it relates to our beautiful topic of the day, art and wellness. And then we are gonna connect back with myself to kind of break us into smaller groups so we can really get into the nitty-gritty of what this meeting is all about, which is hearing from all of you. We'll do some breakout groups and we'll come back together and then we'll do a wrap up. So that is the meeting in a nutshell. And some things that we will be returning to, I'm just gonna post a couple questions here, is basically we want you to dive deep into how you feel about art and wellness and what you know. And we're not just speaking from formal education, what you know from your heritage, what you know from your background, what you know as a person who's living today, as a person who knows your ancestry and what those beautiful sources might have to tell you and have you share with us about how we can live with art and wellness in the future. So we appreciate your input. The questions are gonna be, what are the positive effects of art for well-being and climate? What prevents us from connecting these more? What ideas or visions do you have to connect art, wellness, climate, and more? And then we're gonna invite you to share those things out and possibly write your story the way that Val had in 6 words that tells how art, wellness, and climate connect. So if you do have any questions as we hear from these wonderful speakers and guests, feel free to use the chat on the side to post any questions you might have. Hopefully we'll be able to address most of them, but if not, ACT will be following them up. as well after the meeting. And but yeah, feel free to communicate amongst yourselves and with the group through the chat as we continue with this wonderful gathering. So with that, I'd like to invite Lauren back to take the mic and share out a little bit. Thank you.
I unmuted myself. Am I unmuted? Okay. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to share my screen while we're doing this chat here for the next few minutes. And I'm going to show you some images. So I have spent quite a bit of time in arts and wellness. And it's been really important to me as an Indigenous person to have opportunity to unpack the historical trauma, the historical and lateral trauma that our families and communities face. And so we actually started a program at Tamaquag Museum called Arts and Wellness that we've done on and off for the last maybe 12 to 14 years. And through that work, we were empowering the Native community to become experts in their own particular art form and share it with other people within the community to introduce their art form to others, but also to express ourselves as we were unpacking historical trauma. And in the cover image here, we have a Narragansett youth doing fancy shawl. So dance is part of that because dance is considered ceremony to us. In the middle, that happens to be my grandson, Minakisu Miquin, in the cradle board that his grandfather made for him. And to the right, it's Lindsay, my niece, holding a painting of Princess Redwing in the mural over We Are Still Here. It's part of indigenizing the urban and claiming that space as our own and reminding people that we're still here. And so just as Val said, stories are really important. Stories connect us to our past, to our ancestors. It helps us to remember. They teach. They help us to learn. They connect us with our communities and our families, but also connect other people to our communities and cultures. They make us laugh. Native people love jokes and laughter. I think people that have gone through a lot of trauma do because they need that in order to heal and to be well. Last year at our honoring, we had Adrian Chelapa, who is this amazing stand-up comedian. And I remember listening, I was on the stage and an elder Tall Oak was out in the audience and I could hear him belly laughing at these jokes. Now it was so funny, but it's so healing. That kind of laughter is really important to our communities and to have that healing. But it's important to feel connected to our culture, to our history, to understand our people, to understand our life ways, and they're told throughout the stories, our mores, our identity, our connection. So even if you're the storyteller, that's one version, but for all the storytellers that there are in the community, there's many others that are participants. I hear people say, oh, I've heard that story ever since I was a kid and it's my favorite. They may never take that leap to be the storyteller, but they know the stories. They feel connected to those stories. They feel part of those stories. And maybe in their homes and with their children, they tell a shorter version of that story, but it's part of who they are. It's part of that healing. Music is very much part of that healing. These young people, they're Narragansett on one side of their family and Lakota on the other, and they have trauma, historical and lateral trauma from both sides from this conquest that took place here. Well, learning the flute and learning these traditional arts have helped them to gain a sense of who they are as Indigenous people, help them in the image of the young man with the long hair. He had cut it all off because of the trauma of public school and had gone to Nuituan school. And he often tells us that he his emotion through the music. How he feels is how the song comes out of him. It tells that story of what's happening inside himself on that moment. Whoops, didn't mean to quite go yet. I just wanted to give you a little piece of that, but also that the flute is like a prayer. It's part of ceremony. It's about cultural norms and mores. It's about courtship and relationships. My own son, he was out at Standing Rock being a water protector, and I get this phone call, "Mom, can you send me my flute?" I knew I was doomed the minute he asked for his flute, because now his partner, Michaela, and he have been together for the last 4 years, and I have my grandson, which I'm very blessed and thankful for. Dance is ceremony. There are dances that are actually ceremonial dances, and there are dances that are social dances and for fun. These are many of the dances that we know, and there's many others, but this gives you the example. The accoutrements and clothing that you're wearing is part of that art. Creating this beauty that people are wearing is part of the art. There's ceremony in that. There's the blanket dance is another courtship ceremony. At a powwow, you can see a demonstration of it today, but it's from a traditional ceremony. When my son Robin got married, they did this ceremony as part of the wedding. It's very important that we continue those things. So sometimes there's demonstrations of them for the public to see, but then they're also included within our actual ceremonies. This is the Calumet, which is another dance that's a ceremonial dance. You can see it at the Narragansett August Meeting Powwow, which is the oldest recorded gathering in the United States, 345 years this year. Even though COVID interfered with public engagement and even community engagement, it still went on. The leaders did the ceremonies and everyone else did them in their own homes and yards. These pipe heads are what this dance is signifying. The ceremonial pipe, they're representing the body and the stem of the pipe and sending the prayers to the Creator. All of these things are connected to our culture, but they're also connected to our healing. When we learn these traditional art forms, every one of us are not going to be experts at every piece, but there's something healing about putting your hands in the ground and pulling out clay and learning to process it and temper it with quahog shell and to process and mold and fire and do. Even if you never become, like my cousin Brenda Hill, a professional potter, you feel that connection and you feel that healing, knowing that your ancestors went to that same place and dug that same soil and processed the same clay, and that they used it for their sustainability and the cooking for their families. And today, maybe we're not making cooking pots, we're making beautiful pots for people to see, but it's still that connection. Everything that we do that's a continuation of our cultural norms and knowledge, what we call traditional ecological knowledge, is a connection to our healing. It's a connection to our own health and well-being and our sustainability as a people, and the identity that's so important in our health and wellness. Wampum is very significant. It's historic. Thousands upon thousands of years, our ancestors have created wampum peak, which literally translates as white beads. And today it's thought of as all of it, the purple, the white. But we were honoring people with that. It was used in ceremony. It was used in birth, death, marriage, you know, recognizing leaders in our community, documenting our history. It's very, very important to our community. And it's important for us to retell the story and change what colonial constructs have inferred that wampum is and what it really is to our communities. There's the gathering of resources, which is very much part of ceremony. All of those natural resources are harvested, collected, fished, hunted. Everything is used to its fullest. So when you think of the arts, we think of that as ecological as well, because we're using all of the resources. We're not hunting a deer just to eat the meat. We're hunting the deer, making our clothes, making bags, making tools, making glue, musical instruments, everything that you could possibly use that deer for in its entirety, so that you're not being wasteful. You're showing your gratitude to the creator for this gift of this animal's life for your life, so you're using it to the fullest. And so within that, there's ceremonies for the harvest, there's ceremonies for hunting, there's ceremonies for gathering, and all of these things take place. And so when we're creating a piece of art, you're recognizing the gift that you've been given. And so these traditional arts are what help us to be well. The process of learning them, the uplifting Indigenous artists to be artist teachers, artist leaders that are teaching it to others, but also in passing it down generationally in families, as well as sharing it laterally across the community, and to have the experiences to create things and have leaders and elders passing it on to the next generations. All of my children are artists. My husband's an artist. We're all traditional artists in different kinds of ways, and that empowers us. It gives us a voice. It ensures continuation, and it debunks a lot of the mythology that's out there, because most of the art that I've showed you does not show anything that is representative of the stereotypes of indigeneity. It shows who we are as Indigenous people of this land and connected to this space. We also do a lot of contemporary arts. This particular one is a representation of those lost at the Great Swamp Massacre. And it was a tribal elder, I just lost her name. Can't think of it, but anyway, she represented in silks those of the past, those of the present, and those of the future. And the first one is honoring those lost at Great Swamp, the second showing the tears of the lost, the voice of the remembrance, and then the circles are the healing, how we come full circle and we heal. And part of the healing is knowing your story, understanding your story, and making sure that your story isn't erased from the history, from the reality that is here. And so the elders also went down to the Great Swamp maybe 12 years ago now, and they actually created a whole new song called the Great Swamp Memorial Song, or Kanashawang, where it literally says that their spirits are washing over us. They are in the sky. And the idea that that remembrance and those ceremonies and that song is part of the healing. Today, there are young people that sing that song. There are elders that sing that song. It has become part of our community. And our language is very much part of this healing, the continuation of our language, the pushing forth to more fluidity within our language, and also the creation of new works. Oppression and subjugation and conquest and colonization, the goal was to eradicate our languages and eradicate our culture and eradicate our people. And so by continuing new works, we're pushing against that. We're making creative, artistic works in music, in dance, in art that is pushing forth our stories. And so that's, I think, what I'd like to share. Oh, I thought I was done. One more. So it expresses our identity, reflects on our community, connects us to our homeland, our culture, our traditions. I think I said all of these things already. So we heal through the arts, and who can't heal looking at the beauty of that part there? Another one done by my cousin, Brenda Hill. And oh, here's one by me. I guess I thought I was done before I was. This is a really important piece that I did quite a while ago, and it expresses the healing that was necessary when our ancestors were stolen from us and sold off into the Caribbean, and how our people today reconnected with those that landed in Bermuda, and how today we have a strong relationship that's going on almost 20 years between ourselves and the indigenous population on St. David's Island in Bermuda. And that weaving that I did represents the lands and the waters in the colors that I chose in the weaving, but it also represents the 7 generations that span us, and then the antler beads for the land animals and the shell beads for the sea animals, to make that whole connection between us and them. And our unity together today, and how we use not only natural materials, but contemporary materials today. I think I just like to keep going, but I won't. This is just talking about elders and passing it on. I mentioned Ella Sikatow, and the children actually worked on that mural with Debbie Spears Moorhead, which is here at the museum, 4 panels that they actually talked about historical trauma and learning how to unpack that as youngsters and represent that in a mural, and to teach that and pass it forward to the next generations that come. So there. I was trying to be quick and I wasn't as quick as I thought I was. Stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Lauren. That's just amazing, and we really appreciate you sharing both the wisdom of your ancestors as well as just your knowledge and your beautiful art and how it can be used to really truly combat trauma and trauma to ourselves and the environment, etc. Thank you so much for sharing. We're gonna pass the mic on to Fred Johnson. Thank you so much for being here. Go right ahead.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you all. Thanks for allowing me to be a part of this really powerful and important conversation. And I want to thank my sister Lauren for what you just shared, because in truth, the foundation of what you have shared with us is really what is not known and what is not taught and what is not understood. There is, for the most part, no link to the truth of the indigenous wisdom and the indigenous practices and ways of being that indigenous people have lived and continue to live. And it's why there's been a disconnect. I had a great teacher from West Africa who said to me, really, until America acknowledges the atrocities that have been heaped upon the native people, then there will always be an imbalance. So it's really important for us to acknowledge that. And if you take a look at many of the other indigenous cultures of the world, at the very foundation, there is no separation between the earth, no separation between your relationship to the earth, who you are in the earth, learning your place in the earth, learning how to serve, bringing community together. The allness and the fullness of that is where the beginning is. And so you can't pick up in the middle if you don't understand the power of the beginning. So how is that applied in today's world? Right now, I believe that creatives of the world, artists of the world, we have a greater responsibility and a greater opportunity than maybe ever before to reignite people's understanding that one of the greatest gifts that our Creator has given us is the capacity to create. We get to choose what is it that we choose to create in the world. You know, I have the opportunity and I have had the blessing in my life to I started out in life kind of
Uh-oh, Fred, you're frozen. Come back, come back. Is anybody else? Is he frozen for everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Maybe we'll give him a moment to recuperate and get back to us. Would you like, if Nicole is ready, maybe we can hear from you and then see if Frederick's connection comes back.
which actually turned out to.
Oh,
Let's just wait for Fred to see what happens.
oh. I think we lost them.
Huh.
oh man. And I know he's got to pop out close to 2, so we'll get him whenever he can get back. All right, if he can't, is he gone? Can you all see him?
I think he got disconnected, so hopefully we'll have him back. Maybe we can see if Nicole is ready, and then hopefully Fred will be back soon. Should we try that?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for your flexibility.
Thank you so much for having me here today. It's an honor to be on the panel with Lauren and Fred, and really grateful to Valerie, Gina, Tracy, and the ACT staff for allowing me to be with you today. I have a PowerPoint, and I think Janae is going to help me pull that up just a minute. Okay, so my name is Nicole Hernandez Hammer. I'm originally from Guatemala. I grew up in Miami, and I'm a biologist by training. And I spent about 10 years of my career as a scientist in academia working for a university, where I did research that focused mostly on the impacts of climate change, specifically sea level rise and extreme heat, on both natural systems like the Everglades and built infrastructure like Florida's transportation infrastructure. And it was in that work that I began to understand how disproportionately vulnerable communities of color are to the impacts of climate change. And at that point, there was a lot of conversation about how we're disproportionately vulnerable to the impacts of pollution. But as I was working on sea level rise projections, I was looking at the places in the US that were most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. So Texas, California, New York, Miami, and I realized I have family in all of those places. And so I started kind of digging into the work and getting a sense of how vulnerable we were, and in particular, my hometown of Miami. And at that time, there weren't Latina scientists, a lot of Latina scientists working on climate change. I could count them on one hand. And of those, a lot of us were working, like I was at the time, in academia. And there's this huge lag between research that happens in a university and when it gets into the hands of the folks that need it most, the community members. And then there's a lot of knowledge within the community, a lot of traditions that feed directly into concepts of adaptation and resilience that were not being included in political conversations about climate change. So I kind of thought I needed to shift my career, and I left academia and started working full-time on environmental justice issues. Let's see if I can go to the next. Oh, I'm having some technical issues. I'm not able to go to the next slide. Let's see if Janaea can help me out. Okay, great. So I came up with a model to take the climate change impacts that I was looking at and identify at the block level which places we're going to be seeing sea level rise first in my hometown of Miami. So I was asking where at the block level, when during the highest tides of the year, and then doing something that's called ground truthing, where you have maps and charts in your lab, and then you go in person and you see the sea level rise firsthand if it's happening. You verify if you're right. And then usually that's where research stops, and then people write a paper and that's the end of it. And I said, well, why don't I just start talking to folks, building relationships? There are people I already knew that were in vulnerable spots. And then thinking about how we would lead resiliency together. Next slide, please. So I used maps of Miami. Next slide. And I looked at when the highest tides of the year were, and I created a list of all of the places, and I shared these lists with community members. And this is one of the places that we went to. So what was really interesting is Miami Beach, kind of what you think about when you think about Miami, like the palm trees and the Art Deco and the fancy buildings. That's one side, that's about 8 square miles, and it's a little island, but Miami is much bigger than that. And this is a place called Shorecrest. It's considered a low income area. It's a frontline community. And on Miami Beach, they were raising the roads. They were putting in pumps, making sure the streets were dry. And in Shorecrest, they weren't doing anything. In fact, let's see. This is Mrs. Escobar. She lives in the house right behind her. This is what's called sunny day flooding. So because sea level rise has gone up about 8 inches in the last 60 years or so, places that are very low lying just flood during the highest tides of the year. And right now in Miami, this happens about 12 times a year where there's no rain. It just, the salt water just goes into the storm drains and floods the streets. And the garbage trucks wouldn't come down the street to pick up the garbage cans because the salt water corrodes those vehicles. And so she would have to put garbage bags around her legs and take the garbage cans and walk them down a block so they could be taken out. and she was trying to decide if she was going to be able to live there. So we brought together community folks. We brought together some scientists that talked about, kind of made the connection between the flooding that folks were seeing, sea level rise, and the projections of what was going to happen in the future. Because even though this only happens a dozen times a year in Miami right now, by the year 2045, it's projected that it can happen anywhere between 280 to 350 times a year. And we started working with local planners and engineers to vision what Shorecrest could be. And then we started working with artists. So there's a project called the High Water Line, which was an artist's vision of how to communicate sea level rise to the community. The artist's name is Eve Mosier, and she worked with another artist from San Francisco. Her name is Heidi Quantier, and they came to Miami. They asked me to be one of their science advisors, and I shared my maps and projections and things that I had, and they took that and they did something really remarkable. So here's a quick video about what they did. Next slide, please. So then there's a place in Miami you may have heard of. It's called Liberty City. They've done a lot of movies and shows. It's a frontline community. What's interesting about Liberty City is it's actually very high up. So in Miami, when the railroad was built, they built it on the high ground, right? And then everybody else wanted to live by the beach. And so the most undesirable places to have a home were by the railroad tracks. And so kind of Liberty City sprung up around that area. But now developers are very interested in the highest points in Miami. And so they're doing something that Paulette coined, which is, next slide please, climate gentrification, which is where the developers are coming in, they're taking over, they're forcing or they're expediting foreclosures, and they are building large condos and they're advertising them as climate resilient condos for the wealthy in Miami. And they're doing it in two key places. One is Liberty City and the other one, which is pictured here, is in Little Haiti. And they're actually wanting to change the name of Little Haiti and call it Lemon City, so it would be more appealing to wealthy residents of Miami. So there's a strong fight. And one of the things that Paulette is doing, she's been a resident of Liberty City for, goodness, I think 30 years now. And she does a lot of community organizing, holds a lot of events. She's an incredible person. And every year she holds an art contest for middle school and high school kids to have an opportunity to express in art what they feel about climate change. They're feeling the increased heat. They know that there's flooding all around them. And the conversation about climate gentrification is happening in Liberty City because of Paulette. And so here are some of the pieces of art that the kids have produced. The first one is actually made of all recycled material. And it does two things for the community. It gives the kids an outlet to talk about how they're feeling about climate change, and then it educates folks from inside and outside of Liberty City. It really creates a voice for the community. And so that's kind of the conversation about sea level rise, but Miami is also disproportionately vulnerable to heat. And in reality, everyone is. And so we decided to, the research team and I decided to look at the hottest weeks of the year and kind of do the same thing we did with sea level rise, right? And so we wanted to map the hottest places in Miami. And so we were able to pinpoint the places that had the least tree canopy cover, and we were able to go and hold events there as well. And we partnered with an artist there. His name is Xavier Cortada. He's incredible. He's a faculty member at the University of Miami, and he'll go to the poles, the north and south poles, and collect ice and melt the ice and then make artwork with that melted water. He's amazing. And so we partnered with him and the American Red Cross and the local universities to talk to folks about heat and cooling centers and what they can do to prepare for coming hotter summers, but also talk about climate change in the context of the heat that they were experiencing that summer. And so what the artist decided to do was to bring his solar panels, and it was so hot we were able to fry eggs on the solar panels, and that kind of was a way for folks to also get their frustration out by cracking eggs and just having that release. So I shared this information with some folks at Groundwork, and particularly an incredible artist named Kufa Castro, who has been doing the mapping with the kids in the green team, I think it's called. And so they've been producing some artwork and some really great programs around that. And then kind of the last person I wanted to talk about was Kate Shapira. I know she's someone that a lot of you guys love, and I've had the chance to partner with her on a couple of different projects, and it's amazing. You guys are really lucky to have an incredible group of artists there in Rhode Island. So thank you for letting me share my experiences as a scientist that I've had with artists. I have to say that there's no graph or chart that can communicate the kinds of deep emotions and concerns that we have about the environment the way the group of artists that I have worked with have been able to do. Thank you so much.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Nicole. You should check out the chat. It went nuts during your talk. So you did a great job and continue to do amazing work. Thank you so much for that. I was going to see, we're gonna reconnect with Frederick later on, and we're actually gonna move on with our program. Kind of exciting. Before we move on and ask for your amazing input, and I know you're thinking, your emotions are going nuts. How many great ideas, how much insight, how many beautiful stories did we just get to experience together? And I know you want to share it as much as I do, my own observations and reactions to these wonderful examples. But we are actually going to move into a break because some of us might need to stand up and move around and kind of get our bodies moving a little bit. I'm going to see if, well, Shay, you didn't get back to me, so lots of love for everyone here. We're going to take a 5-minute break. We're going to be asking you for an activity or a participation in an activity that does involve writing. So if you're not close to a pen and paper, take these 5 minutes to stand up, move around, grab a writing utensil, and keep those thoughts and beautiful ideas that you want to share with us. Keep them in a safe, beautiful space for 5 minutes from now. So we're going to put some music on and reconvene actually about 3 minutes from now because I talk too much. Thank you so much. Gonna get some music going, so feel free to stand up, move around, say hi to each other. Shortest break ever, but you know what? Hopefully some of us got to take a breath, as Val has been reminding us to do all day. Beautiful work. Thank you for that. Would you like to say something, Val? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I just want to let folks know that, as Tracy did say, Fred will be back, and hoping that folks will have the opportunity to share and unpack all that's been inspired from our two presenters thus far. Yeah, that's it. So much to do, so little time.
I know. Great, and so many feelings, right, Val? Always.
Always.
Very inspired by all this. We'll give people 1 more minute or so to come back to us. That did go remarkably fast, but that's the way of the Zoom. So when we do come back, and for you guys that are already here, I'm gonna ask you guys to engage with us in a small activity here. That is smaller. It's small in the way that it sounds, but it's actually kind of a big task. As Val will attest. We are gonna attempt to share your story in 6 words that tells how art, wellness, and climate connect. In 6 words. It sounds like an easy task, but you actually, depends on that, what your main art is. I find it challenging. So why don't we just take a moment, and in 6 words, we're gonna write down how art, wellness, and climate connect.
For you in this time, and Don't censor whatever comes, may be just exactly the right thing.
All right. That didn't feel like enough time. I totally understand. This is the fun part about art within parameters. We're gonna actually divide into fun, smaller groups. It's one of the things we haven't had a chance to do is really meet everyone in here. And because we're such a big group, we're gonna divide into smaller ones, explore our six-word story and some of the other questions and inspirations that we've been gathering so far in this meeting. And I will invite you guys to join us in these smaller groups. Our facilitators are going to be Valerie, Vadik, AM, and Gina. And Micah will be joining Valerie as a note taker. Stephanie will be joining Vadik as a note taker. Shay will be joining AM as a note taker. And I will be joining Gina. So we will see you in the smaller groups where, trust me, you'll have some time to share out about everything that you have in your heart. Thank you so much.
We have about 30 minutes. Is that right, Tracy?
25.
We're back. I thought we were going to get bumped sooner and then we re-engaged in our conversation.
All right, I'm back, Val.
Oh, Fred's back. Fantastic.
Yes. Welcome back, Fred.
Yay. That
Yes.
powerful energy there. So do we want to get a little feedback before we have Fred do his thing? Are y'all?
Why don't we do Fred first? Because there might be some very inspiring information there. I'm absolutely sure of it.
Fred, do you want to talk, then feedback, and then close us out with a song?
Sure, that'll be fine.
All right.
Absolutely. Can't promise that I won't do any music at all during the 10 minutes, just because
Listen, do
Just
you.
for it. All good.
I just have to not move a lot. That's my thing.
Yeah,
Just move
Like-
my mouth. So
that's so hard.
happens a lot though. Just an energy. When back in the days of Skype, I used to have a horrific time. I mean, I just couldn't. I couldn't go. You know, I'd have students that I'd try to teach on, and I'd have to almost whisper because if I went full voice, it would just freeze. It's crazy.
So we'll give you your time now to talk about what you had started to talk about.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we'll do a little bit of feedback from all the groups. I think that's what I heard Tracy say.
Okay.
And then just before we go, then we'll, have you close in your beautiful way that you do.
Okay. I might take my background out because that'll make my signal a little bit more secure. Oh, can I? How do I do that? Ocean's better anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll just tell them I moved from one place to the other. Just came out here by the water. That's beautiful. What time are folks coming back, Val?
Oh, we're back.
Oh.
Oh, I'm
you ready?
sorry. Yep, we're ready for you to do something now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just sitting here looking silly. Okay. Hi, everybody.
We thought you were like
No,
getting ready to feel it all in,
I didn't know what was happening. See, it's been that kind of a day. Anyway, listen.
Yes,
Edge of my seat waiting for this. This is a good reason. Like, wow,
Oh
he's
my
really getting
goodness,
into it.
that's so funny. That's so perfect. That's so perfect. Okay, so anyway, let me just first and foremost again say that really where we are now is to create opportunities for us to not divide or see some division between our artistic or our creative expression and who we are in the world. You know, there are a couple of things that link us when, there's lots of conversations about the things that divide us, but there are a couple of things that link us. One is breath, right? I mean, breath is our life source. It's what connects us. It's an important part of our total being. I had a a great teacher once who said to me, you know, that each of us, we receive, we lovingly receive each inhalation, each breath that we take. And so we breathe it in, and our life's journey is to understand, how do we give that breath back? How do we articulate that external breath? So breath is the one thing that really unites us. I've had the opportunity in my life to work in many, many parts of the world, in countries and in situations that were people were faced with conflict. And the one thing about the human animal is that the human animal has the capacity to know beauty. The question is whether or not we choose to create beauty. So in our journey as artists and as creators, understanding that, as I said earlier, now more than ever, we have a tremendous opportunity to be the energy and to be the voice of the intentionality of that creativity. You know, it's an interesting thing. You know, we live in a world where we have are mostly in our minds, and really we have to move more into our hearts. Another one of my teachers says that, you know, the longest journey traveled is the journey between the head and the heart, that distance between the head and the heart. And it's important for us as creatives, and art will do that. Art engages the heart. Art moves us beyond the place of thinking into the place of feeling. And the beautiful thing about this journey of breath is that it really, really connects us first and foremost to life itself. And then it has the opportunity, if we give it, to connect us to others. In terms of our nurturing and honoring the sanctity, the beauty, the life source of the breath, that other thing that is really a connected piece is the fact that we are really predominantly water. You know, water is an important part of who we are. Most of us see ourselves and think of ourselves as being solid, but in reality, we're really fluid beings. You know, we're largely fluid. So those of us who choose to be in the realm of creativity, you know, that the more we can move people into the experience of creating beauty, of recognizing and feeling a connection. Sometimes it's as simple as, you know, we kind of think with our minds when we hear the voice like this. But if we simply change and move our experience into this thing called elongated breath, and realize that the frequency that we share together is a shared one of breath. People argue about the wind and the land and purity, but the purity of breath that COVID-19 has reminded us of, the fact that we have this shared need and desire to recognize and understand that our life source is breath itself. And so that this sharing of breath, which is a part of what all of the indigenous cultures of the world teach, our understanding of our relationship and our kinship to the wind, to breath, to air, to life, to the earth. These are not philosophical concepts or intellectual concepts that we have in our life so that we can argue about whether or not we're responsible for it or not. We receive it as a gift of life itself. So to the degree that we are able to celebrate, honor, and acknowledge our relationship to all of creation itself, and those of us who are artists, those of us who tell story, those of us who sing, who create paintings, who dance, who create food, you know, there's an art to life and living itself, and it is foundationally based upon the beginning of our everyday taking that breath of life and recognizing that that is our link to life itself. Not how much money we have, not what kind of house we live in. Our link to life gives us a responsibility to find out what our service is. And so if it's moved to the telling of story that inspires imagination, you know, we all know this because as children, we were amazing creators and seekers. We were explorers. We wanted to discover life. At some point, we forget the magic and the beauty and the opportunity of discovery and exploration and sharing. You ever see a group of small children, 1, 2, 3 years old? They explore each other, look into each other's eyes, they laugh with each other. If the texture of one's skin is slightly different, then they reach out and they touch that and they smile. It becomes an exploration. So we've forgotten how to explore. So the gift of art in terms of our connection to our environment is to remember each day and to inspire others to recognize that that breath of life that we take in and of itself contains all of the essence and importance of living itself. All the rest of that stuff, we make that crap up. But the reality is that we have an opportunity by the sensitivity and by the connection to the realization that all human beings have the capacity to recognize and know beauty. I've been in situations where two people were arguing, fiercely arguing, just in each other's face, just arguing, and a butterfly flies by, and for a minute, they stop and they take a look at it. Because there's something inside of us that reminds us that creation itself is magnificent and beautiful. Now, they went back to arguing, but they took that moment. And so our responsibility is to remind people of the pure essence of who we are, the pure beauty of whom we are created to be. And that whole philosophy that is in many of the faith traditions of the world that says to be in but not of the madness, and be committed to creating reminders so that we can realize our humanity, a journey of the heart, and to recognize the heart. So when people begin to get in discussions about, well, how does art relate? You know, if you take the barriers of language out of the way and you create an opportunity for people to move into that place of the heart, that's where our real humanity lies. The challenges that we're facing today is because we've moved away from the effort to really feel and articulate our humanity. Art does that. Art can remind us, those of us who write song, again, be reminded of the magnificence of that which is around us. It's not just there for us to wake up every morning and see. It's there every day for us to live into and to learn into. And that's what the art journey is about. You know, the drum is representative of the beating of the human heart. You know, the sound of birds, movement, many of the movements that humanity has created are a byproduct of watching birds and watching nature itself. But we're not taking time to do that. But as my dear sister Lauren reminded us, every element of our living and being is not separated out. It's a beautiful thread. It's a beautiful thread connected to the perfection that humanity can know, but we have to relearn it or unlearn some of the garbage that we've been taught about each other. In order to divide and separate, you have to be taught that. No child comes into the world hating anything but being cold and being hungry. So we can artistically and in creative ways create nurturing environments through art to shift our minds and remind us to move into the heart place, to truly be able to feel the breath of life and to know that there is nothing created in this world that we are not connected to be one with breath, to feel the essence of another and to look into another's eyes and see a reflection of you. Fully and completely we are created to know each other, not to separate and divide, but to move towards each other, to discover each other. It's the things that are different about us that make the human experience unique and beautiful. It's the nurturing gifts that life itself gives us that sustains us, not our minds, not what we learn, but what we live into realizing. To me, that's the bridge between art, our world, each and every one of us. The journey to coming together begins with knowing who you choose to be and how you choose to articulate that. Because it's the foundation of our being in creative ways. And that's the greatest gift that our Creator has given us. Breath of life itself and the capacity to create. Our journey is to decide what is it that we choose to create. Do we choose to be in harmony with our world? Do we choose to create beauty? Do we choose to be a part of balance? Or do we choose to manifest chaos? In creative ways, we can articulate which of those choices is better. That's all I got.
Woo! I feel like I want to do a communal hoof right now because I want to unmute and just go like, wow.
Ah, indeed. We can breathe together for sure. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Fred. And right on time, right?
Well, Fred, you led us into, first of all, you have to share in the chat. All of us are curious how we can experience your wonderful energy some more, if it's available publicly, that is. We are actually at the end of our time here, which is fabulous with some extra time. Val, you've been designated to do a goodbye and loud noise and celebrate here, but I'm feeling like we're all just like a communal hoop. Shay, you want to pitch in?
Yeah, Gina has to close with next steps.
Yeah, that's what I was right, exactly. We got some next step. I know, right?
I'm in another place now. Okay. All right, let me be a bureaucrat again. Thank you all so much for being with us today and for exploring together what art and well-being is and what the future of it can be in our city as we develop this policy that'll lead us in Providence for the next 10 years. And as Lindsay Montanari has reminded us through previous land acknowledgements, for the next 7 generations as well. So we will be taking all of the feedback from the breakout groups. It'll inform the strategies and recommendations that go into the planning document. There are additional planning studios happening. There are 2 happening next week, one on the creative workforce, which is really looking at how to support individual artists and how to make sure that they have the conditions to thrive in Providence. And the other one is on advocacy and tourism and awareness of the creative sector. So those are on Monday and Tuesday, I believe. And then later on, we'll have the future of arts, teaching and learning, and another one on resilient nonprofits. So there are still lots of ways that you can be a part of the planning process through attending studios. We'll also have the draft sections of the plan released on our blog, and we will invite all of you to submit comments on the writing itself before we do a public meeting where we release the draft. And there's also a way that you can just continue this conversation with your family friends, with your colleagues, however you want to organize it. A focus group, we invite all of you if you are able to. It's a quick Google form that's on our blog, and you can just basically continue the conversation with whoever you want to continue the conversation with, send that in to us, and we will include all of that feedback in the draft as we are writing the plan. So we hope to have this ready for release in the spring. We're going to throw it out in the universe so that by then we will have a vaccine and we will be like out and about and be able to see each other in person to celebrate that release. And yeah, that's what's coming up. I'll throw thank you, Stephanie. There's the planning info. The link is in the chat. You can register for studios off of there. You can see the group focus group form there. And the recordings from all of our planning studios will be up there live. So if anybody wants to feel fed and see all of our guest speakers again, you can hit play on that. We'll have that up probably by tomorrow. So thank you all so much. I'm sending it back to you, Shay and Tracy.
Wow. These sessions keep getting better and better. Thank you so much, Valerie Tutson, Rhode Island Black Storytellers, for hosting this really powerful session with all of us. Thank you, Loren Spears, Frederick Johnson. What am I missing here, Nicole? I can't see you, but I know you're here. There we go. Yeah, and I don't have any much to add. Just if we want to like unmute, give a huge shout or a breath together to honor Frederick's presentation and words and poetry, and just thank you. Thank you. Woohoo!
Yay.
Hey.
Fred
Woo!
wants
Yay, it's great.
Woo.
Guys,
yeah,
no.
throw out some words, any words for the
Yes,
day. I can't wait to hear
Shared
notes
art.
from the
Woo!
groups.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Shay and Tracy here, artist facilitators.
Yeah, thank you, Shay and Tracy, so much. And no, Fred did put stuff in the chat, so did Loren, so that people can find out where everybody is. And we at Ribs will be having, we have Fred whenever we can get him. So we'll let you know when he'll be back with us. And Nicole, thank you so much.
Yes, thank
And
you.
Loren, yes, all of you. And yeah, just thanks. Art Health Network, I want to say too, we should probably put that in the chat with Sherry and Stephen so that folks can find out what's happening on the state level too. So we can keep those connections weaving together.
Thank you, Val.
Yeah, but who else am I forgetting anyone else? Hopefully not.
Vatican AM, thank you for joining our facilitation team. Much appreciated.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
absolutely.
Well, hopefully
Cool.
y'all can go off and disconnect from Zoom and enjoy some sunlight.
Yeah. Okay, Fred, I will call you on your phone. Ernest, I'm so glad. Christina, so good to see you.
Pleasure to meet you, Ernest.
Yes.
And we did talk about the schools in our group. So there, yeah.
Bye, Val.
Bye, friends.
Bye. Thank you all so much.